God, is horrible. All right. Oh, this music. My Lord. We are live. You are listening to an episode of Transparency and Merit.
That is correct, Joe. You are listening to an episode of Transparency and Merit. And the topic for the day is white privilege is trending. That's what I called the show. And it was trending on Twitter. And we'll go back to the StreamYard, which I'm in right now. So, yeah, it's been trending on Twitter, Joe. And I was going to do a show earlier that hit this kind of point because I got another message on my bell icon, and it was a while ago that I had gotten it. It was somebody who had mentioned about Colin Ferguson, and there are all these messages about Colin Ferguson mentioning that Colin Ferguson didn't go to Burger King like Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof was the person who shot up the black, or at least predominantly black, church. And I said, well, why don't you get him a Whopper? You know, why don't you get Colin Ferguson a Whopper? Why don't you, get him and fries and a milkshake? It's just such a stupid argument. And I was going to do a show on that, just make it a double Whopper again or something. And then what I came across was white privilege was trending on Twitter. And I thought, well, this kind of ties into that argument about white privilege. And I don't know if this is all going to tie in together, but, gruel tastes really good if you're starving. If you're hungry or you're starving, you will cut the moldy part of the bread out. Like if someone hands you moldy bread, you'll cut that out and you'll eat it. You may even eat the mold if you're hungry enough. So that's the way it is with freedom. I mean, freedom and starvation. If you're starving, you're gonna pick. You're gonna forego your freedom for something to eat. I think most human beings will. And one of the reasons we don't debate white privilege the way we do is because the left is a very vindictive and very powerful and very vindictive that they have proven to be. They can economically cripple you, which can cause you not to eat. Oops. I was going for my water. I apologize, folks.
Nice move.
Yeah, but I think to demoralize the people, I mean, the first thing you do when demoralizing somebody is censor them. And then it's very easy to demoralize them. And then after they're demoralized, anything you say about them or do to them, they won't even, they won't think twice about it. I could give the example of, and I continue to give this example of what has happened in Rotherham, England, with the grooming gangs of over 1,000 women have been groomed, and it looks to be primarily a racial incident. Nobody says anything about it. South Africa right now, they are looting for food. And I think whites are going to be a big part of the brunt of abuse there. I could be wrong on that. I hope I'm wrong. But this may or may not be the case, because South Africa, their shutdown has really stifled their economy. So censorship. They claim white privilege, and then a lot of times when you battle against it or ask for evidence, they will censor you. For a while, by the way, there were a lot of YouTube stars and other stuff who would bemoan white privilege, and then they got shamed basically off the internet. And with their shame, I think they went to the powers that be to censor those who shamed them. And the sad thing for me, Joe, is the people who were against this white privilege narrative, they were winning. They were defeating the people who were claiming it as true. So what they decided to do was take the internet or the social media platforms away from those who were railing against it. And this is where we're at today. If you rail too hard against certain narratives, you will be censored at best, and maybe even punished at worst. And I have a whole reason to why the left is in control now. I'm not going to get into that now, because that would delve into something a little bit more like, kind of deep. Not that deep, but it's more intricate. Like, it's family lineage. The communist.
You can get deep. We allow you.
Well, no, I mean, it's basically the leftists, these leftists who ran Hollywood, they had children. And also the leftists who came out with degrees. College is basically a leftist petri dish. And they're the ones that control a lot of these social media sites. And, for a long time, the mainstream media, held up the belief of white privilege and police brutality and the like. And there were no other outlets to basically fight against it. And then when there became an outlet, then they basically, put the clamp down on. And not only do they do that, they're also, like, if you go out into the streets, now that you can't really except they're protesting to open up. But before this pandemic happened, if you went into a major city and announced any protest against the civil rights industrial complex or the fanatical anti-racist, and you were trying to protest against that narrative, you could be violently shut down. And the police would be on the side of the mob, not on the side of the peaceful protesters. And I guess they have to demoralize you so they can control you. And it looks like they're doing it through terms like white privilege, white supremacy, using these catchphrases and words first to censor you, then to punish you. If you go against them, they'll make examples of you, and then to just out and out just control you. I mean, they already do. You have to go to any kind of unconscious bias meetings or white privilege seminars. You may be forced to do that. Although right now, if you have, they don't, I don't think they open up their white privilege seminars to the public anymore. And you and I, Joe, have seen some of those white privilege seminars be taken over. I mean, like, just basically people are there, like people who are asked questions are asked to leave, and anyone who protests them or has a different opinion are asked to leave. There's no debate with these people. The left does not debate. They basically censor and punish. And is this the kind of society that you want to live in? Is this the kind of nation you want to live in? And I'm talking about the West. The rest of the world, I don't have as much influence on. I'm talking about the Anglosphere, and I'm talking about much of Western Europe. Yes. Joe, is there anything to add before I end it? Because I have exhausted all of my topics. I mean, all of the things I wanted to say on that. Just,
No, make sure you subscribe. But yeah, that was good. I wish we could get a caller in to address these with you. So maybe at some point, if you want to talk with Brian.
It's always good to get a good discussion, even better yet, a good debate. But I don't necessarily see that happening at this moment, just because the left does not allow it. And like I said, the first thing that someone who wants to demoralize you does is censor you, and then other things can happen on top of that.
Now, I do think Mr. Morris will be passing this around. Thank you for joining us, Todd. And anybody out there, obviously spread the word if you can. Share this with people you think might like to discuss these topics and more. But I guess unless you have anything else, we could call it a night.
Yeah, I think I don't want to repeat myself. I just want to say, like I said, very quickly, a free society is a society with robust and healthy debate. It's even a society where inflammatory things can be said without punishment. And that's not the society we live in now. And I hope to see that change. But like I said, I mean, change only happens if you all take a part. You see what's going on. You can read what's going on in South Africa. You can read what's going on in Europe with the rapes and the other types of things. So people don't stop what they're doing if you're polite and nice to them. They stop what they're doing if you don't cooperate, and you should never cooperate with bullies and people who don't respect you and don't respect your rights. So like and subscribe, and thank you for listening.